Hi, podcast listeners and subscribers, and if you're not subscribed, please do it. Here's why. These are times of social distancing, dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. And while social distancing is smart in our physical lives, let's draw closer to the media that connect us. In these times, I don't know about you, but I am binge listening all sorts of podcasts, and we're going to provide you with a listening list right at our site. Go to lauraflanders.org/listen and hit play on any podcast in the playlist, and it will continue to play each podcast one after the other until you ask it to stop. We're curating a list of our best, most hopeful videos and audios for your listening pleasure. And if you want to check out the video, it's right there. So go to our website, lauraflanders.org/listen, for a whole lot of forward-thinking, upbeat listening, addressing exactly the questions we need addressed right now. You know, this program started more or less 10 years ago in the wake of the financial crash, when we were asking ourselves, how can we do better than what we've had before? How can we do housing, healthcare, work, social life, politics better? In 2008, we failed to take advantage of the crisis to really make the changes that would have avoided at least some of the crisis we're facing today. We said back then, let's not recover the system that just crashed. Let's come up with something better, something that works for more of us, more of the time, for more healthy lives and a healthier planet. We said that then. This time we have 10 years of programming designed to answer those questions under our belt. So subscribe at lauraflanders.org/listen. Just join our mailing list, and we'll keep the information about the content coming. And if you want to be part of our community that supports the production of this content going forward and get full access to all the extras we're going to be providing in these times, subscribe. You can do it for as little as $3 a month. Join our community at patreon.com/The LF Show, where you will find links dedicated to every issue and every episode we release, reading lists, suggested viewing and watching, information for you from us and from others that will help you go deeper into the issues that are so critical for all of us today. Consider becoming part of our community and help us help you through these times. Thank you. Now on to this week's show. Hi, I'm Laura Flanders, and this is The Laura Flanders Show, the TV and radio program that seeks to raise radical spirits by interviewing forward-thinking people with real-life models of shifting power from the few to the many in the worlds of arts, entrepreneurship, and governance. Average, normal, the mainstream, most often occurring person or condition or taste. Over her long career, Jutta Treviranus has been pushing back against cultures, policies, and technologies that lead with the norm. Any one of us, she says, due to birth, situation, or accident, could find our most critical needs falling outside of what is deemed average and going unrecognized, unserved, unseen. As founder and director of the Inclusive Design Research Center at the Ontario College of Art and Design University, Jutta's work challenges the way we build software, make large-scale decisions, and even govern. If the majority rules, she says, then there will always be someone left marginalized. It's all coming up on the Laura Flanders Show, the place where the people who say it can't be done take a back seat to the people who are doing it. Welcome. Jutta, I'm very glad to have you in the studio. We first met many years ago, and it triggered something in me that has been a really interesting, led me on a very interesting journey. Where did thinking about these questions start for you?
Well, we've been looking at the tension between universal design within architecture and within industrial design, where what we have to do in order to stretch, to encompass a whole range of needs, we have to create one-size-fits-all systems, which, of course, is a very difficult process because we're so diverse. We have so many different needs. And it started when, actually, I had this fairly optimistic period in '79 when...
That's going back.
That's going back quite a ways. So the first thing that came out in '79 were personalized computers. And at the time, I was working with 12 people that wanted to attend university but had a variety of disabilities and therefore couldn't attend. And I thought, oh wow, here are translation devices. They can translate what I'm able to produce as speech into something that's recognizable. They can translate what I can't see into something that I can sense. Then the next wave of innovations came out, the web. And here there was the opportunity to collectively band together and create resources. But since then, I've been seeing how these have been co-opted and how all of the values that we originally thought of are actually going in the opposite direction. It's not greater inclusion. It's not benefiting people who are diverse. We've sort of transitioned into popularity data, or we're going against all of the things that we were hoping these technologies could do.
When you're talking about universal design or designing for majorities or for the most often occurring data point, a lot of people would say, well, that's normal. That's how you make sure your service fits most people.
We think that technology is so disruptive, that we're doing something so new. And yet those ideas came from the early 1800s when we started the first wave of big data and demographers started to measure people. There wasn't this notion of average until Quetelet invented what he called the average man. And he was a fairly racist, bigoted person who
selfish,
said that
competitive.
Yeah, that anything that was not actually average, he said, was a monstrosity. It was a deviation. The perfect person was the average.
So what year are we talking about?
We're talking early 1800s. And he was a compatriot of Dewey and also Darwin. But of course, I think Darwin was somewhat misinterpreted. It's actually Darwinism that we took from that. But what it resulted in is a whole set of ideas that have become unconscious, and we're not recognizing when we use it. It's so entrenched in our ethos about the normal, the average. I would challenge anyone to listen to themselves and monitor to themselves how often we use it. And it's had massive implications, not just for people that are not average or not typical, but also for us as a society.
So describe some. How so?
Because of the way that we've been looking at how we make decisions, how we govern, how we determine what is truthful and what is evidence, we are compelled to think about only the largest customer base or the statistical average.
So if you have a lot of likes, it must be true.
Popularity,
or
exactly,
a lot of people say the thing, it gets greater credibility.
Right.
If everyone's buying it, must be good.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's happening is we are creating disparity because there are the people that do not fall into those categories, that are not popular, that are not part of the majority, that are not part of the metrics, or that are diverse. So the way that I like to talk about it is we collected this data set of needs and requirements because we were trying to create a platform that would serve unmet needs at the margins with the skills and opportunities of people that couldn't find their way into the labor force. And so we had all these data points of what is it that you need, what's critical and essential to you. And so if we took that data set and we plotted it on a multivariate scatter plot, it looks like a human starburst, where you have 80% of the needs clustering in the middle, taking up 20% of the space, and then the remaining 20% are scattered across the rest of the starburst, taking up 80% of the unexplored terrain. And so what's been happening with our manufacturing systems, with our knowledge, with everything, I mean, work, education, democracy, is that whatever we design works for that middle 20% of the terrain, or if your needs are within that middle 20%, and that's 80% generally of the individuals. And as you move away, it starts to become difficult, and if your needs are at the edge, then it doesn't work. Out of that have come the waste that we have, because we're all very different. What it compels us to do is to create a single sort of structure for the middle. It doesn't cause us to stretch or to innovate, and it doesn't allow us to see the weak signals, especially in our knowledge systems. And so we are reducing the innovation. One of the things that is frequently talked about when we're talking about the push for progress and the entrepreneurial sort of spirit is that Friedman curve, where we say that technology is adapting exponentially, people are adapting linearly. And that's supposed to encourage us to become more digitally literate, for people to adapt much more quickly to the technology. But I think it's actually a worse situation, because I think the way that we've been designing our technologies is causing people to adapt less. We're not exposed to dissonance. We're not exposed to diversity. Recommender sites, the popularity push that we're talking about, means that we are making ourselves more and more comfortable. We're not adapting to the diversity that is around us. And I would say that there is another curve that's very similar, in that technology is connecting exponentially. We're creating this mesh of connected technology, and yet our technical designs and our technical systems are actually causing us to connect less as humans, whether it's device-mediated systems or whether it's the disparity, the polarization that's happening.
So there's a huge amount in what you just said.
This is the Laura Flanders Show. I'm Laura. My guest is Jutta Treviranus, founder and director of the Inclusive Design Research Center at the OCAD University in Toronto. She's working with her team there on changing how we think about everything from public health to education to architecture. To our lovely podcast subscribers and listeners, I hope you are doing well. We know that many of you listening more, and much of what you're hearing is bad, even terrifying news. The course of this pandemic is impossible to predict, but there will be a time after this crisis. What then? I know you rely on the Laura Flanders Show for the models of change we report on, so we're producing a new series, Forward Thinking on COVID-19, where I have my guest of the week offer their best forward-looking perspectives on what needs to come in their area of expertise. Subscribers to this podcast are getting that series delivered directly to them, as well as my regular commentaries. In the latest, I ask, just why is it that the U.S. is uniquely reluctant to adopt a public health approach to public health? Sign up for our newsletter to keep abreast of all this new work, and subscribe to this podcast easily at lauraflanders.org. And if you're listening on iTunes, we would really appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by writing us a quick review. Will ya? It just takes a minute. Thanks. Next, how the Inclusive Design Research Center in Toronto is pushing back against policies and technology that's designed only for those deemed normal or majority or lowest common denominator. It's not just conceptual when it comes to learning at the margins, as Jutta explains when she describes what happened when she tested driverless car technology. But first, here's If I Could See by Raul Midon from his upcoming album The Mirror, to be released on Mack Avenue Records this year.
If I could see, I would walk alone sometimes, stroll serenely along a tree-lined street and watch the comings and goings of people moving toward their separate destinies. I would listen to snatches of conversation, letting them touch my curiosity without stopping to find the deeper meaning. I would move in space and time, letting my arms swing nonchalantly at my sides. I would become one with the motion of walking, the faint odor of flowers, the smell of sea air, books, perfume, sweat, and vehicular motion. I would speak to no one, save for a slight nod of the head or wave of the hand in silent acknowledgement. I would be unattached. If I could see, I would stare open-mouthed at the infinity of the stars.
One of the things I think about is when you are trying to provide or produce for a mass system, and your country is as big as the United States, it sounds like what you're talking about is not unrelated to the growth of these enormous monopolies and the disparity between rich and poor, because just by virtue of the matter of scale. The other thing that makes me think about is we're talking about popularity and inaccuracies, but your research has actually been about human life and driverless cars, things like that.
Yes, yeah.
So this isn't just conceptual failure.
No. I had one really pivotal moment when it just hit me, whoa, where are we going? What are we doing here? Especially as a researcher that's looking at data. I was able to test 6 driverless car learning models. So these are the learning models that are going to tell cars stop, change direction, or continue through an intersection. And I thought, okay, I'm going to test them with something unexpected, something unusual. So I had a capture of a friend of mine who pushes her wheelchair backwards through an intersection. She's really fast, she's very efficient, but most people think, oh my gosh, she's lost control, and they'll grab her and try to push her back to where she came from. All 6 of them decided to run her over. They all said, wait, it's okay. These are not smart enough. We haven't exposed them to enough data.
The companies all said, we just didn't have it quite right.
Right,
come
exactly.
back.
Yeah, come back.
We'll get better.
We'll get better.
And
We'll make them smarter. We'll teach them more about people in wheelchairs and intersections. And so I came back after they had exposed them to a lot of data on people in wheelchairs and intersections. They reported to me that they were much smarter. What happened is they ran her over with greater confidence, because all the data told them to be confident that people in wheelchairs go forward when they go through intersections. So the smarter systems are actually driving the smarts to not be cognizant of the margins, not to be cognizant of those weak signals and those unexpected things.
So is that as simple as algorithmic bias, which we've talked about in this program before, that your outcome is only as good as the data that you put in?
Well, so this is what worries me, because there's a lot of attention at the moment to AI ethics. And the 2 main things we're concerned about with AI ethics is, let's remove human bias, because we are biased. If we take data about anything that we've done in the past, there is racism, there's sexism, there's all of those things. And so even if ideally we could remove all that, and the other area that they try to cover is the data gaps. It's highly unlikely that if you have a disability, if you're old, if you live in a rural, remote community, if you're not literate, that you're going to be part of a data set, because you may not have the devices, and researchers are less likely to collect the data on you. Researchers usually exclude you if there's anything that might be unusual. We can address those data gaps, but if ideally we could have proportional representation, we could remove all bias, we're still in trouble.
Why?
Because how we analyze the data and how we make decisions based upon that data is by majority rules and by statistical significance, which means that if you are not like the average, then probability is wrong. It's just wrong, and the decisions will be against you. And it doesn't serve us as a society or as humanity at all, because we are therefore actually contracting. We're taking our focus in. We used to be pioneers, right? And when we think about what does it take to survive as a society, it takes pioneering, it takes new innovative thinking, it takes evolving, but we're devolving to some extent, because we are pulling all of our insights, all of our focus into the average or the typical. And so we'll miss the weak signals.
In the media world in which I operate, the way that plays out is that we are told, and when Facebook was putting in its new ways to combat fake news, they said, well, we'll make sure that we use majorities, mainstream sources, the whole idea of mainstream, and they'll be the ones that are prioritized. And I thought to myself, well, if somebody like Ida B. Wells was around today, she would never make it into Facebook's algorithms, because she was saying the exact opposite of what everybody had been saying about lynching.
Right.
Her analysis of what was happening, her reporting of what was happening, was that weak spot, or strong spot, depending on how you look at it, she was sounding an alarm, which by nature means a new sound that you haven't heard before, or not enough people have heard.
Right, exactly.
So how do you do this differently?
Right, yeah.
And what are the implications for democracy? I mean, you're kind of dodging around it, but I'm kind of hearing democracy isn't a good principle.
Well, it depends how we interpret democracy.
Okay,
democracy needs to be more than one person, one vote, because the only thing that we're doing is we're counting the number of people as opposed to giving weight to the value or the criticalness of what it is they require. If I have a critical need and I'm trying to find a representative to address my critical need, and my neighbor just wants the pothole in front of her driveway to be fixed because it's really bothersome, the better off our society becomes, the more likely through our democratic system at the moment, we are going to address the needs of the neighbor with a pothole, not the needs of the person who has a critical need that is going to save their life. Because there will be less people aware of that, and there will be less people that will be voting for that. So we need to think about democracy in a much more nuanced way. And I know it's a really, really dangerous time to be criticizing democracy. But I think the problem is that when things get polarized and when we're under attack, we retrench and we lose self-critique. And I think the main thing we need to do as a progressive society, as individuals that are concerned about democracy, is to think about how we can evolve democracy and address the issues that we have.
Are there models coming from the world of criminal justice? I had Dean Spade on the show at one point who talks about trickle-up justice. And Kimberly Crenshaw talks about it too, but these are two progressive legal thinkers who are saying, we don't want rights that we make for the vast majority and then add other people in. We need to secure the rights of the most vulnerable and the outliers, and in doing so, ipso facto, we're creating a better safety net for everybody. But is that directly applicable? I mean, can governments actually afford to do outlier-driven planning?
Well, I think it's the only way that we're going to be able to predict what is coming. And it's not the majority that tells us what are the disruptive moments. I mean, you can see it in what are the innovations. I mean, all of the innovations came by looking at the edge and by trying to address the needs of the edge, whether it's email or even the web or the internet and things of that nature, all of the things that have in essence caused us to evolve. And there are scientists that are looking at things like Darwin and how did humans evolve? Well, humans evolved not during periods of natural selection when there was a huge amount of competition and we got rid of the weak, which is usually what we think of as Darwinism. It was actually when we had relaxed natural selection and we had a greater variety of choice to choose from. The objection that people frequently make to that outlier viewpoint is that, well, are we giving in to extremism? Are we, letting
the guy at the back of the room screaming?
Right, yeah. But that's not, in fact, the case at all, because what happens, we prevent polarization and we prevent extremism by being exposed to a variety of views. Polarization happens when we cushion ourselves from diverse perspectives. If we have diverse perspectives and if we make room for diverse perspectives, we allow the greatest diversity and support the greatest diversity, then we're going to reduce extremism and polarization.
What the white anti-racists of Surge would call calling in as opposed to calling out.
Right.
How do we do it? You have any examples?
Yeah. Well, I think so. We have lots of examples where they're all experiments. Of course, this is new territory. We're pioneering, and actually, the main
in a non-colonial kind of a way, non-seizing land.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for. Of course, the other critique we frequently get is how do we measure? The way that we're trying to do this is through bottom-up co-design. So we have the 3 dimensions of inclusive design. First of all, we have to start out by recognizing that we're all very, very different. Even those group of people that are in that middle, that are average, that are supposedly typical, there isn't any average us. There isn't even an average you. Don't believe that Myers-Briggs or whatever, what color is my whatever.
My color scheme?
Those personality typing things, because we change depending upon our goal, the social
part
context.
Of the day, in my case.
So yeah, exactly. How old we are, what our experience was. So we need to recognize that we're all very diverse. And we need to recognize the diversity in an integrated way. So we can't say, I'm going to deal with those that have economies of scale and then the rest afterwards, if I get to them. It has to be integrated. We also need to make sure that the knowledge about how we're different is imparted to the individual, and that because we need a self-awareness of our diversity. The second dimension that we have is we have to create inclusive processes for our decision-making, for our designing, so that everybody can come to the table. What does the table look like? How do we design the table?
So more like public assemblies, perhaps.
But a whole diversity of ways of contributing your views. It's not just about inviting people to a place that they didn't help to design. I think that's one of the unfortunate ways in which equity and social inclusion have been addressed lately, where we decide we're going to hire a whole bunch of people that we haven't hired before, but they come into a culture and they come into a set of systems that were not made with or for them, and so there are friction points, and it's a way of saying I told you so. It doesn't
Women
work.
just don't last in the workplace.
Right,
we
exactly,
don't know why. They
yeah.
leave mid-career. Why could that be?
Yeah, exactly. So we need to invite people to help us design those tables. And that means a very, very democratized set of tools, whether it's coding, whether it's how to contribute within education, how to do research in such a way that it honors your ways of knowing. There's this phenomenon that we've noted, which has been dubbed epistemicide. Epistemology is knowing, knowledge. Epistemicide is the killing off of different ways of not knowing. And to some extent, if you think about our data systems, or you think about how we are saying what is truthful and what is evident, it is dependent upon a certain quantified, average, statistically significant set of information. So that's another really dangerous thing to critique, I know, because we don't want ideological decisions. But I think in the same way as we need to think about a more evolved form of democracy, we also need to think about a more evolved form of how we determine truth and evidence.
Is it possible? Because I'm thinking of the thinking that has been done about there are two kinds of people. There are people that like things fixed, and there is a formal moral code, and we get it written down, and it's put in the law books, and then we follow those rules, and we say this is true, and that's false. And then there are the kinds of people who believe things are culturally true or false, depending on different circumstances, that we live in created, changing realities. Are we capable of kind of shifting from one to the other?
So I think one of the issues is that we think in binaries all the time.
Right, of course. There's not only two kinds of people.
The third dimension is that we live in a complex adaptive system. And so what we need to do is we need to not think about winning, not think about best, but think about the range. What is the range of needs what are the range of choices that we have? And then to try to provide a spectrum. One of the things that our technical systems have allowed us to do is to create tools and environments where if I had to design a door, I would have to design it in such a way that it anticipates everybody that might come to it. But if I were to design an entryway to an environment that is a digital environment, a networked environment, then I can have it change depending upon who's there, and I can call upon all the individuals that are connected to it to help with that change, so I don't have to do it redundantly.
Is the climate activist Greta Thunberg changing anything in the sense that she, being on the spectrum, has said she's been very articulate about my special powers you used to call inadequacies, but they are exactly what is enabling me to read this data, integrate this data, communicate it clearly, and have a sense of urgency that you guys have lost.
Exactly. And
you think she's changing things?
Yes, I think she's changing things, and I think there are many more Greta Thunbergs out there if we give them the time, the attention, the tools. It's the individuals that have to be resourceful. They can't use the standard systems. They have to change things. They can lead in the innovation, in detecting the things that we haven't done.
The outliers will get us out of here. Something like that.
We hope, yeah.
Jutta, thank you so much. Really a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming in.
As many of you know, the Laura Flanders Show is also a TV show. We produce it on a shoestring and distribute it for free. We don't take money from government or corporations. We're made possible by our audience. That's you. If you already contribute, thank you. If you don't yet, please go to our website and do your part. And if you really want to participate in this project and partner with us in these uncertain times, join our Patreon community at patreon.com/the LF Show. There we make all sorts of special background information available about our guest, this week's topic, related reading, listening, and viewing, and even a playlist of the music you heard here. We call it Music in the Middle. It's all good stuff. This week, Patreon partners received my background research packet on guest Jutta Treviranus, as well as an exclusive uncut conversation with me about the way her work is being applied by schools in this time of pandemic. That's all at patreon.com/the LF Show. You don't have to give, but we hope you will. Contributors help make all of our content free for everyone. While we're physically distant, let's dig deep for a better future. For background information, our Forward Thinking on COVID series, my commentaries, and more, go to patreon.com/the LF Show. Thank you. This show is produced by yours truly, Laura Flanders, with Matt Colicello, Natasha Gaspard, Nat Needham, Jeannie Hopper, Jeremiah Cothren, Dominic Marcella, and Mercedes Gorostiago.